Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum students. Welcome to online lecture 4. In our previous lecture, we had studied the need for dosage form, which was the part of the chapter Principles of Pre-Formulation Studies and Dosage Form Design. Today we will be starting a new topic, which is a connection to the ones we had already discussed. The topic that we are going to study now is pre-formulation studies. Let's start with the introduction first. Discovery of a new drug entity is a huge milestone in science. And it becomes even more important if it passes toxicity screening as the potential benefit, which outweighs the side effects. The ultimate effect of the new chemical entity depends on its availability at the site of action once it is administered through appropriate route in appropriate form. So for this reason, a new challenge is offered after successful pharmaceutical and toxicological screening, that is to perform potential active new drug entity into that is to form or transform a potential new drug entity into a pharmaceutical formulation. Let's come to the definition that how this pre-formulation studies are defined. Pre-formulation studies are defined in many ways. Let's learn a few of its definitions. A phase which works on the study of physical, chemical, analytical, pharmacokinetic and pharmacodynamic properties of the new chemical entity and utilizes to obtain results to design and develop an effective, stable and a safer dosage form. Pre-formulation studies can be broadly elaborated as a phase which works on study of physical, chemical, analytical, pharmacokinetic and pharmacodynamic properties of the new chemical entity and then utilize these properties to obtain the results to design and develop an effective, stable and a safer dosage form. It can be defined in another way. Pre-formulation is a group of studies that focus on the physicochemical properties of a new drug candidate or a lead molecule that could affect the drug performance and the development of dosage form. Laboratory studies to determine the characteristic of active substance and excipients that may influence formulation and process design and performance is another definition of pre-formulation studies. These pre-formulation studies has been described as learning before doing. So what are the objectives of the pre-formulation studies? The preliminary objective of pre-formulation phase or study is to lay down a foundation for transforming a new drug entity or a new drug molecule into a pharmaceutical formulation. And that transformation should be in such a way that it can be administered in right way, in right amount, and on perhaps the most important at the right target. The secondary objective of pre-formulation study is to provide longer stability to the formulation, and this longer stability can be provided by the proper designing and protecting the drug components from environmental conditions. And the last objective is to evaluate the performance of the developed formulation. So what are the outlines of pre-formulation studies? How these pre-formulation studies are performed, and what is the main protocol to perform these pre-formulation studies? Initially, screening and harvesting of an active molecular entity is done. Once an active molecular entity is defined or it is found, which we called in our previous lecture a lead compound, the optimization of active molecular entity into a suitable form, that is a prodrug or a suitable salt form, is done. If it passes the chronic and acute toxicity studies, the lead compound actually, if it undergoes all the parameters of chronic and acute toxicity studies, and it passes those studies, like it is safe for use or for desired action, it is actually subjected to formulation development. And that formulation development is actually dependent upon the type and intended application for that particular form of drug. Once it is decided that this particular drug is to be formulated into a particular dosage form, these 4 analysis or testing procedures are done. First is analytical profiling, and then physical characterization, chemical characterization, and profiling of pharmaceutical properties. In next slide, I will be describing you all these 4 in detail, that what we do in these kind of profilings and characterizations. After these 4 parameters are conducted, the initial development of formulation is done. After initial development of formulation, the formulation is subjected to drug excipient stability studies, and then some analytical research is done on that developed formulation, and PK/PD profiling is being carried out in order to know the pharmacokinetic, pharmacodynamic, and bioavailability profiles of the formulation that has currently been made. Once analytical research is done, it is actually the research on the formulation stability studies and the impurity analysis and formulation assay. The drug excipient stability studies are again a part of formulation stability studies. When all is done, the scale-up studies and manufacturing is carried out once a drug passes all these requirements. So let's move forward and discuss what we are doing in these 4 phases, that is analytical profiling, physical characterization, chemical characterization, and profiling of pharmaceuticals. So in analytical profiling, what we do? We do structural characterization, and this can be done by various techniques like infrared spectroscopy, mass spectroscopy, or we do differential scanning, calorimetry, or there are other techniques that are used to structurally characterize the drug. In second instance, we do impurity determinations. For impurity determinations, we use Karl-Fischer titration method, GCMS or simple MS or HPLC. And in third phase, we do assays. We perform assays, and these assays are analyzed by using UV or HPLC, or by titration method, simple acid base and non-aqueous titrations. We would be studying them in detail in later classes. In physical characterization, the solubility studies are conducted of the active dosage form, and as well as excipients that are going to be used in that particular formulation. The nature of the drug is determined, either it is hygroscopic or deliquescent, and the morphology of the particular compound is determined in terms of particle size, particle shape, polymorphism, crystallinity, and density. And then we do chemical characterization. In chemical characterization, what we do, we analyze the partition coefficient, we analyze the chirality of the compound, the stability studies under a variety of conditions. And lastly, profiling of pharmaceutical properties. Here we do the density checks, compressibility index and flow properties are determined. The wettability and rheological studies are carried out of the particular pharmaceutical compound that are to be formulated into a dosage form. In the next step, we do optimization of an active molecular entity. Following the successful pharmacological screening of an active molecular entity, one has to be sure about the appropriate molecular form of the active molecular entity. The optimization of the molecule is needed with respect to the stability of molecule under normal environmental conditions, or with respect to the enhancing the performance of that molecule, like bioavailability and stability. To embed these virtues into a molecule, efforts are made to optimize the molecule in the form of salts, solvates, polymorphs, or more importantly, prodrug. So let's repeat what we are doing in optimization of an active molecular entity. After the successful pharmacological screening of an active molecular compound, a formulation scientist has to be sure about the appropriate molecular form of active molecular entity. The optimization of molecule is needed with respect to the stability of molecule under normal environmental conditions, or with respect to enhancing the performance of that molecule, like bioavailability and stability. To embed all the parameters into a molecule, efforts are made to optimize a molecule in the form of salts, solvates, or polymorphs, or prodrugs. So let's move forward and we'll discuss about the salt formation of the drugs. Nearly half of the drug molecules that are marketed as drug products are administered in the form of salts. Converting a molecule into a salt form is perhaps the most widely used approach to significantly enhance the performance of the molecule. And that performance can be stated in terms of bioavailability or solubility. This performance can also be made to improve the stability of the drug molecules, like hydrolytic stability and thermal stability. By thermal stability means the drug candidate would be stable under the influence of different temperatures. The improvement can be made to actually improve the organoleptic properties of the drug, like taste masking. And the salt formation is done to increase the patient compliance as well. That means decreasing the side effects in certain instances, and for the formulation of dosage form into the modified dosage form. There are several factors that are needed to be considered while selecting the appropriate salt form. The number one is the main factor that determines the appropriate salt form is the type of formulation that is to be developed. Like mostly we are developing tablets or oral solutions or injectables. So in that instance, we are using sodium and hydrochloride salts because they are most suitable to be used in these type of formulations, especially when we are developing tablets, oral solutions or injectables. With sodium and hydrochloride salts or hydrochloride as salt form, there is always an enhanced solubility, and that enhanced solubility in turn affects the bioavailability. That means it produces the effective or better bioavailability in vivo conditions. For example, propionic acid derivative naproxen actually exists in free acid form and has lower solubility and hence less bioavailability. But when it is converted into a sodium salt, its water solubility is increased by 7 folds and hence better bioavailability is achieved. Another factor that determines the type of salt is the type of formulation to be developed. For example, when the formulation to be developed is suspension, insoluble salt forms like tosylate, stylate and embonate are the preferred salt forms. The third factor is the therapeutic indication actually. Therapeutic indication is another factor that affects the selection of salt form. What type of salt form we are selecting is actually being affected by the therapeutic indication or the purpose for which the specific medicine is going to be prescribed. Like in case of the drug prescriptions, when a patient is suffering from hypertension, the use of sodium salt is avoided. This is the main reason behind the development of potassium salt of diclofenac, which is preferred over sodium salt, because diclofenac potassium can be given as an analgesic in patients with history or current occurrence of hypertension. Although diclofenac sodium is also available, but it is prohibited or it is contraindicated in patients with hypertensive disorders. The next factor is the regulatory perspective. Selection of salt form must meet the regulatory requirements and they must be free from toxicity. For example, use of lithium salts is strictly prohibited because it leads to intoxication. For immediate release formulations, generally sodium or hydrochloride salts are preferred as they show better solubility, whereas for the delayed release formulations, one can prefer low solubility salts, salt forms such as tosylate, stylate, embonate that I have previously mentioned in this current slide. Increased patient compliance can be obtained by converting a molecule to a salt form. Salt form can improve the taste adaptability by masking the taste and odor of the particular drug compound. For example, piperazine can be improved organoleptically by converting into a salt with adipic acid. What is a prodrug? So let's define prodrug. Prodrug is the chemically modified inactive derivative of the active form, which is optimized for better properties and in vivo performance. Almost 1/10 of the pharmaceutical products that are used as prodrugs, with the main aim to improve the bioavailability by avoiding first pass metabolism and the improved drug absorption and organ selective transport. So prodrug can be defined as inactive form that undergoes biotransformation and converted to active form to elicit its pharmacological effect. I'm repeating the definition again. Prodrug can be defined as inactive form that undergoes biotransformation and converted to active form to elicit its pharmacological effect. Development of prodrug depends on a specific property of a drug that needs improvement, and mostly with respect to stability and improving bioavailability. In recent times, science has moved to various other forms of prodrugs, specifically cord drugs, hard drugs, and soft drugs, where cord drug consists of two pharmacologically active components which are complexed to form a single molecule. That means two pharmacologically active components are combined together to form a single molecule, for example sulfasalazine, levodopa, and entacapone. The other form which is expressed nowadays are soft drugs. Soft drugs are actually the modified derivatives with the predetermined metabolism. Their metabolism is predetermined so that after external pharmacological action for suitable period of time, their metabolites can be eliminated from the body. Hard drugs are the opposite of soft drugs. Here the modifications are made in such a way that its original properties are retained, but are not prone to chemical or biological transformation in order to avoid generation of metabolites or to increase the biological activity. I'm repeating the three definitions again. The prodrug in recent times are defined as cord drugs, soft drugs, or hard drugs, or you can say that these are the classes of prodrugs. Cord drug consists of two pharmacologically active compounds which are combined together to form a single molecule, for example sulfasalazine and levodopa and entacapone. Whereas soft drugs are the modified derivatives, and these modified derivatives have predetermined metabolism, so that after metabolism or after exertion of the pharmacological action for a suitable time, their metabolites can be eliminated from the body. Whereas the hard drugs are actually the opposite of soft drugs, where the modifications made is in such a way that its original properties are retained but are not prone to chemical or biological transformation to avoid the generation of metaboloids or to increase the biological activity. Apart from the above mentioned classification, there are two main broad classes of prodrugs, that are carrier-linked prodrugs and bioprecursor prodrugs. Prodrug can be a carrier-linked prodrug and a bioprecursor prodrug. So let's define first the carrier-linked prodrug. What is a carrier-linked prodrug and how it is formed? In carrier-linked prodrug, the drug is linked to a carrier moiety by a temporary covalent linkage. The drug, which is in a biologically inactive form, is covalently linked with a carrier molecule. The cleavage of the carrier prodrug generates a molecular entity of increased bioactivity or biologically active drug, and at least one side product, which is the carrier, which may be biologically inert. So let's repeat, what are carrier linked prodrugs? Carrier linked prodrugs are actually covalently bounded biologically inactive drugs with a carrier molecule. This carrier molecule is biologically inert, and this is temporarily bound with the drug with a covalent linkage. Once the covalent linkage is cleaved off, this drug is separated from its carrier molecule, but the drug which is separated from its carrier molecule is actually a biologically active form of drug which was initially in an inactive form, releasing a carrier molecule which is biologically inert. Carrier molecules or functional groups that are attached to the drugs can be easily removed in vivo using hydrolytic cleavages. There are several criteria for being a carrier-linked prodrug, which are as follows. Link between the drug and a carrier molecule must be a covalent linkage. That means that a carrier molecule and a drug must be covalently bound with each other. Carrier-linked prodrug is inactive or less active than the parent compound. The linkage between the drug and the carrier molecule must be broken in vivo. That means when a drug is given or administered in vivo conditions, the covalent bond must be broken down in order to leave the drug. The prodrug as well as the in vivo release transport molecule must be non-toxic in nature. It should be specifically the carrier molecule should be inert. The generation of the active form must take place with the rapid kinetics that will ensure the effective drug levels at the site of action, and that will minimize either alternative prodrug metabolism or gradual drug inactivation. If the generation of active drug is delayed in any way, it would actually lead to the prodrug metabolism and gradual drug inactivation, which will in turn affect the bioavailability of the drug at the target site. Bioprecursor prodrug is another type of prodrug which is commonly used. In bioprecursor prodrugs, a molecular modification of active compound is done, and this is the main precursor of formulation of bioprecursor prodrugs. In vivo transformation of drug, specifically bioprecursor prodrugs, generates a new metabolite. So what are the goals to form a prodrug and why we are forming the prodrug? Prodrug is formed because of two main properties. Number one is improving the unfavorable physical properties, and by unfavorable physical properties we mean that we are improving the drug water solubility. We are making an effort in the improvement of lipophilicity of the drug, and we are making an effort in the improvement in chemical stability of the drug, and the organoleptic characteristics of the drug are also improved. The second main goal is improving the unfavorable pharmacokinetic properties of the drug. That means we are actually focusing on the improvement of bioavailability of the drug, We are focusing on the improving penetration and penetration power through the membrane, specifically when the drug is being penetrated from the solution form into the epithelial lining of the stomach in case of oral dosage form. And we are making a prodrug in order to improve the first pass metabolism. And lastly, in order to deliver the drug for target specific sites or target specific drug delivery. So let's do a flashback what we did today. We had learned about the introduction to the pre-formulation studies. We studied the definition, at least 4 definitions of pre-formulation. Then we studied the objectives, why we are doing the pre-formulation studies. And after that, we had discussed the whole outline or protocol of the pre-formulation studies. After that, we had discussed the optimization of an active molecular compound or molecule entity. And in that, we discussed the salt formation and the factors for selecting a salt form and prodrug. And in prodrug, we had discussed the carrier-linked prodrug and the criteria for carrier-linked prodrug and bioprecursor prodrug. And lastly, we discussed the goals to form the prodrug. In next lesson, the main topic of pre-formulation studies will be continued. And as part of pre-formulation studies, we will discuss the determination of chemical properties. For your queries and questions, discussion forum is open on HULMS. Post your questions referring a slide number on HULMS and I will get back to you. Ask questions as many as you can. Use this trick. Listen to the lecture video twice. In second attempt to listening the lecture, try to transcribe it and make a script and then refer to the chapter which I'll upload along with this lecture. That is pre-formulation studies, an integral part of the formulation design. So the take-home lesson for the day is don't panic. Be positive and try to bring a healthy and happy approach in understanding things, especially life. Thank you. Let's call it a day. Take care of yourself and everyone around you. Allah Hafiz.